Dr. Ashley.
Okay, so today we're talking about feminist criticism theory, which aims to reinterpret literature from a female point of view. Literary analysis that arises from the viewpoint of feminists, mostly from a political perspective. It helps readers to identify with female characters and reevaluate literature from a world perspective. It also resists the traditional assumptions and supports women's knowledge and experiences and aids for their education and what they go through. This concept was developed by Lisa Tuttle in the 1980s, which is this one right here.
Components of feminist criticism is that it uses the ideology of feminism to critique literature. In doing this, it looks at the portrayal of male dominance through things such as economic, social, political, and psychological forces in literature. In order to do this, it looks at old texts with a new lens. It identifies with the female characters. It attempts to cut down stereotypes. They ignore their own gender influence. They critique the marginalizing pronouns, such as he or she. They look at different styles of writing, and they look at the relationship between genders. There were several different movements of feminist criticism. There was the first wave, which was the late 1700s to the early 1900s. The second wave, which was the early 1960s to the late 1970s, also called gyno-criticism. And the third wave, which was the early 1990s to present.
Hannah, how do I know if a literary piece is feminist criticism?
Well, Danae, you can ask yourself what time period the text was written in, or what events were going on in the world during this time period that might have influenced the text, or how does the gender of the author influence the text?
Okay, so some examples of the feminist criticism comes from the first wave, and Mary Wollstonecraft, this lady right here. She wrote The Vindication of Rights of Women, and she shows the inequality between the sexes. Wollstonecraft says, "It is time to effect a revolution in female matters, time to restore to them their lost dignity and make them as a part of the human species. Labor by reforming themselves to reform the world." Moving on to the second wave, and they were working on conditions necessary in America during the World War II. The movement now stands for National Organization of Women, and Simone de Beauvoir, which is this lady, and her partner Elaine Showalter started feminist theories with the Civil Rights Movement. An example from this text is A Literature of Their Own by Elaine Showalter. The last wave is more focused on contemporary gender and race theories. Alice Walker, who wrote The Color Purple, for example, was one feminist concerned with the Black community. An example text for this is from Virginia Woolf, and it reads, A Room of One's Own.